Five-star predictions start to roll in. Could Hugh close with the number one class?
In a world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we're ready to get after it. Happy Tuesday. Iron Bowl week. Iron Bowl is closing in just a couple of days away. You got Thanksgiving rolling right around the corner, and we got five-star predictions rolling in for the Auburn Tigers. We're going to break down each one of those, the stories around it. Auburn's legitimate pathway to the number one class. It's right in reach. It's very realistic, and we're going to talk about how that happens, and then just in-state dominance in this year's class and what it could mean if you go ahead and consummate this flip of Nahim Offord. But before we get started, we got to give a shout out to Mybookie.ag. Use coupon code NEXTROUND for a 300% deposit bonus. So give them whatever you give them, multiply it by 3, and that's what you're going to get back in free play on top of it to play in the casino. 50 free spins on the slots, all kind of stuff in the games that you can play with that free play. Then take your winnings over to the sports book and hit that any way that you like. Parlays, teasers, round robins, first half, second half, live betting, doesn't matter. They have it. Really fun platform, easy to navigate, easy deposits, easy withdrawals. Check them out, mybookie.ag. So yesterday there was like an avalanche. And we've been talking, if you've been paying attention to the show, we've been telling you to watch. We felt confident about Nahim Offord. If you're a member of the barn, auburn.com, we've been talking about our confidence in Nahim Offord flipping eventually to the Auburn Tigers. And yesterday there was an avalanche, is the best way to put it, of predictions from national writers, which makes me a little bit nervous because you hate if it's something you're working on kind of behind the scenes, you want it to be quiet as long as you can. But hey, I mean, signing day is 8 days away, and when those predictions were coming in, it's 9 days away. So it's not like it's a secret anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's not really a secret that Auburn's been pushing for this ever since they've known Nahim Offord. It's not like it's something that they've just all of a sudden under the cloak of darkness have decided to pursue this kid. No, this has been something they've been pushing for a while. I think he's been to Auburn the past 2 weekends, been to Auburn several games this year. It's always makes headlines when he comes. And it seems now it was realistic to me beforehand, but now it's even more realistic that it seems like Auburn's going to be able to do, I guess, maybe the impossible in a lot of people's eyes, and pull this thing off. You had Steve Wiltfong go first, which the Fong bomb is the one that's everybody watches. And then Tom Loy, dad, put one in. Well, he didn't really put one. He put one in a long time ago, but I guess he just kind of reiterated it. And then multiple beat writer sites, their writers started putting in picks. Just a lot of momentum now headed in the direction of Nahim Offord ending up being in this class. When will it happen? It seems like now that the cat is out of the bag, it could happen at any point in time. But since it's gone this far, if I'm Hugh and I feel confident, I might want this to be announced on signing day. And he actually did. I think Nahim said it's going to be some signing day decision. So I think it. Could it happen prior? Maybe, but I think it's ideal for Auburn and for publicity and for the headlines to have that happen on signing day, if that's the timeline, which it seems like it is, that he's going to announce between Ohio State, Oregon, and Auburn. And it seems like, why would you have an announcement on signing day excuse me, if you're going to stay committed? Why do you need to announce that you're already committed somewhere? So it does seem like Ohio State's probably not the destination. I do think Oregon's a legitimate threat. I mean, anytime you have Phil Knight and Nike involved, they're pumping out big time money. They're pumping out big time money in recruiting. They're getting ready to pump out a bunch of money in the portal. I mean, I think there's some blockbuster stuff that they could be doing that you may see happen with Oregon in the portal. One that sort of could be local that you may see that could be very, very interesting, that would send shockwaves through college football. But so, yeah, they're always going to be a legitimate threat. But at the end of the day, it's all the way out there on the other side of the country. And that's a Birmingham child that loves his family. And that'd be tough. That'd be tough for him, I think, to make that trip all the way out there. Even if the money's good, you still got to think about all the hassle of loading everybody up, flying them out there. You got to pay for it. You got to pay for, I mean, it's just Auburn. You can come down for the day and turn around and drive back, and you can bring a pile of folks. You can bring a truckload of folks to come to Auburn. Whereas, obviously the Oregon group that you take with you, or that you travel out there for games, things like that, are going to be few and far between. But still, Oregon's a legitimate threat. But I do think Auburn wins out in the end. I want to take everybody back. I want to jump in a time machine really quick and go back to summer. Or maybe it may have been even spring practices. And you have recruits on campus. You have recruits at practice. You have Hugh Freeze doing his thing. We call it the balcony watch during practice. Who does he take to the balcony? Because that's where he closes. And Hugh just very aggressively went up to reporters with, I don't know if they were talking to Nahim. I don't know if he was actually with Hugh whenever he went to the reporters. And he basically said, obviously you can't say this out. You can't say this to the media or whatever, but you could talk like kind of, under your breath, off of the record type stuff. And he's like, you want a headline? I'll give you a headline. Hugh Freeze is not missing this kid. This kid's going to be an Auburn Tiger. He said, you want a headline? There's your headline to the writers. And it just, the confidence that he was not going to give up on this kid. I think he actually, I can't remember the timelines, and I should have looked it up, but he either was committed to Ohio State, or he was just about to commit to Ohio State. I just remember a lot of egg that felt like it was on Hugh's face after that comment. And a lot of people were poking fun and this, that, and the other. But I think he's going to have the last laugh. And what a ballsy move to call your shot like that. But he knew the relationship that they had. He knew where he stood with his family. And he knew ultimately, I think, that if they just kept at it, if they just kept chipping away, they would get him. And I think, honestly, Nahim's just been looking for a reason. I really, just give me, come on, guys, just give me some bit of reassurance that this thing's moving in the right direction, because I want to be here. I got great offers everywhere else, but I want to be here. But I got to feel like we're going in the right direction before I come. And I think he got that on Saturday with the big win over Texas A&M. I mean, when he gets here, think about this too. Think about the depth chart. You got corner is actually pretty thin if you really, really think about it. He could be, as soon as he signs the paper, he could be number 2 on either side. And I'm so anxious to see how they work everything out, because it's going to be hard to keep that kid off the field. He's that good. So it's going to be interesting to see. The predictions have rolled in. I've been on him. I've been saying it's going to be Auburn for weeks now. And if you've been a member of the barn, you would be totally up to date on that. I think I said sometime that we got some intel last week, actually, prior to the game, And I said my confidence could not be higher at this point in time. And I was wrong, because now it's even higher than it was last week that he's going to end up in Auburn, and it'll definitely make some headlines. And I like the idea of it, the flip happening on signing day. But you got to battle to the end. You can't take it for granted. Auburn or Oregon is going to be someone you're going to have to battle. The good news is there's limited time for him to actually be able to go out there and for like a last minute visit. So that's kind of working in Auburn's favor. Could he go to Ohio State this weekend for the Michigan Ohio State game? Possibly. That'd be something to watch too. But I really do think Ohio State may be out of it. And I'm not sure if I already mentioned, but Ohio State actually took a corner yesterday. So they flipped a corner from, I believe, Cincinnati, maybe. They flipped a corner from, it's either Cincinnati or Nebraska. One of those teams. They flipped a corner last night, which I think is, the timing is really interesting, to add another corner to the class right around the time all these predictions start rolling in that this kid's going to leave your class. So definitely seems like Ohio State's going to be out of the, is probably not one of the top two going into the final decision. But at the end of the day, you still got to battle. You never know what they could do. You never know what they might throw at him last minute. So, and he's been committed for a while. He's been committed to them for a long time. So definitely got to keep battling. There's a pathway to the number one class. And I talked about this earlier in the summer. And it's funny because the pathway is a lot different now, but the pathway is still there, and it's very realistic. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But before we get started, before we do that, we got to give a shout out to our boy Ford Stokes with Active Wealth. It doesn't matter what type of retirement plan you have in place. It's a second look's never going to hurt anything. Go to retirementresults.com/plan, get a free custom portfolio analysis of $1,500 value, absolutely free. He'll look into the fees that you're paying. He'll look into the products that you're utilizing, and then he'll look at the strategy behind it and make sure that it's the correct strategy, or B, that it's performing at its optimal level to stretch that dollar that you've worked so hard to save as far as it possibly can go. Tell him War Eagle, tell him we sent you, make a friend at the same time. It's Ford Stokes with Active Wealth. There is a legitimate pathway to the number one class, and which is remarkable to even have this discussion with as it stands. Looking at the record, it's really remarkable to believe that there is a legitimate pathway for Auburn to end up with a number one class. Number one, what you have to do is retain all your commits. We talked about that. It was the same thing that we talked about in the summer. Retain your commits. There's one commit that's going to be tough. I think Auburn wins out in the end, but it's going to be one to definitely watch until the end. And that's Jared Smith. Ole Miss is coming really hard. South Carolina is coming really hard. He's probably going to go to the Egg Bowl, go back to Oxford. That'll be 2 trips in 3 weeks. Thought he might get caught up in the emotion and completely shut it down this past weekend. Was actually really close to shutting it down. And I think he's going to just see it through a little bit further, which is, I get it. And again, I've mentioned it about him that he feels like a kid that just wants to get out of the state of Alabama. But you got to keep your commits, okay? You got to consummate the flip with Nahim Offord. You got to consummate the flip with Usman Kroma, which Auburn picked up a ton of momentum with. And I think Georgia has taken this kid for granted and just said, hey, you're a running back in Georgia. You should just come to Georgia. And it's sort of soured a little bit on him. And I think they're going to rally as much as they possibly can and show him that they care and show him that they don't take him for granted. But I'm wondering if Auburn can pull. I think Auburn can pull off the win here and get him back in the fold. And Auburn sorely needs another running back because you never know what could happen. You lose Jarquez Hunter. You didn't bring in a running back last year. And then do you lose? Can you keep Damari and Jeremiah again? Can you keep both of them for another year? Another year where they're waiting. They want to be probably both want to be the feature back, and they're going to have to split carries again. Can you keep both of those guys? Both of them could be feature backs at a lot of different schools. Can you keep both of them? I think, and then if you lose one, it just brings up the importance of adding another running back. So you definitely got to get another running back, and Usman is the guy you want to get. And you're probably still going to have to go to the portal. But yeah, if you get those two guys, if you just right now add Usman Chroma and Nahim Offord, as far as points go, on 247, because they have to me, the easiest way to calculate things with the class calculator and the composite, which compiles all the different site scores into an average. So it's not just like their particular rankings, they're comparing it against all of them. So you're not just getting those random one site 5 stars. I mean, it's adding up all, taking into account everybody. That would put you tied, I think, with Georgia in points for recruiting as far as your class goes. So if you keep everybody and you add those two guys, you're tied with Georgia. Then it all depends on, in my opinion, Justice Terry. What does Justice decide? I'm not sure how many commits are out there for Georgia left to add to the class, but that's a big one. And Auburn obviously just hosted him for a visit this past weekend. So it all depends on, to me, what happens with Justice Terry. It really feels like it's a long shot for Auburn to somehow pull that one off. And if they don't, and he goes to Georgia, Georgia's going to have the number 1 class. And Auburn should be number 2. It also obviously depends on guys behind you, but Alabama would be one that's close behind. And I honestly think they're going to lose guys, not add a ton of guys between now and signing day. So, and they would be behind you in points anyway. So it would take some pretty massive flips for them to jump you should you add Nahim and Usman Chroma. And then you have Ohio State, who's going to drop because of the offer flip. So they're already going to drop. So you don't have to worry about them. Then it's Texas. You're ahead of Texas. What does Texas have left on the board? I know they've got some guys they're looking to close with. They'd have to have a pretty strong close even still to be able to jump Auburn. And if Auburn were to land Justice Terry, there's no chance they're not the number 1 class. So there's a pathway, believe it or not, at 5 and 6 with all the controversy and everything, the disappointment of this year. There's a legitimate pathway to the number 1 class, and we'll have to battle to the end. But regardless, no matter what happens, this is still the greatest class in the history of Auburn recruiting, in modern day Auburn recruiting. People try to argue with me over this. It's not even close. Like, just look at go to the 247 composite, look at the total score of the classes, the total points of it, and then go look at every other class. The only one that's close is 2016. It's the only one that's even remotely close, and it's way ahead of that one. Don't look at where they finish in the rankings. Doesn't matter, because it doesn't. If there's class, if the score is still low, it doesn't matter, because the ranking doesn't tell you how good the class is. It's that score at the end that tells you how deep it is, how many studs you actually have, and it scores it out for you. So this was the top class. This is, as it sits, as the top class in Auburn history, and I don't think it's going to end. I think they're going to keep adding to it. Talk about a little bit about what happens. It's in-state dominance. Just the in-state dominance of this year, if they were to pull off this flip, that would give you the top prospect in the state of Alabama 2 years in a row. So Hugh would have been here for 2 full classes, and both years he would have gotten the top prospect in the state of Alabama, and sitting really good with the top prospect next year in the state of Alabama as well. So that right there is sending a message, the importance of doing well in state, especially with the top ranked kids. So that's 2 in a row. That would give you 8 of the top 10 in the state of Alabama and 9 of the top 11. And this is assuming you keep Jared Smith, which ultimately I think Auburn's got a better chance of keeping him than losing him. So that would give you 8 of the top 10, 9 of the top 11, which is incredible. Alabama would have 0 of either of those. Their top-ranked player is number 15 in the state, which is crazy to even think about. Not one player in the top 14 in the state of Alabama. Just A lot of things changing. A lot of things changing. Things you're not really used to. And this is another thing. It's not just like there's a lot of kids from the state of Alabama that, don't pan out just like every other state. It's not like just getting kids from the state of Alabama just because is good. This is a deep class in the state. There's 8 top 100 players in this class, and Auburn's going to get 7 of them. Which is think about that. Auburn's going to get 7 of them. Should they keep Jared Smith and land Nahim Offord, which it looks like we're headed in that direction. That's just a really incredible recruiting effort. Hugh is the best recruiting college head coach in college football. He's the best recruiting head coach in college football, hands down. You can say Kirby Smart if you want to. Kirby Smart has the Georgia is the best recruiting job in the country. Everybody that goes to Georgia recruits well. So that doesn't really do it for me. Doing it at Auburn in between 2 powers during a rebuild with not able to sell a ton of big victories. And you're knocking on the door of possibly having a pathway to the number 1 class. It's not even close. It's not even remotely close. Dan Lanning would be the closest, in my opinion. Dan Lanning is recruiting dudes all the way out to Eugene, Oregon. Is pretty impressive, and he does it at a really high level. Now, granted, they do have endless monies, but still, it's a long way out there. So, got to close, got to finish. I know I complained about the recruiting calendar a couple of shows ago, but honestly, it may end up benefiting Auburn because you don't have to go so much longer keeping these guys. You don't have to survive in-home visits. It's just kind of ends. It ends after this weekend. So, let's see what happens. Let's see if we can continue to push, continue to close this class out, maybe get a big win this weekend and just have the momentum at sort of a fever pitch. But guys, I really appreciate it. I'm anxious to see how the shows work out over the rest of the week because I'm going to be traveling for Thanksgiving. Y'all just hang in there with me. I'll get them done. I'll get them out there for you and we'll have some fun. So I really appreciate it. If you like this video, like it. If you like this channel, subscribe to it. Follow me on Twitter, _Charlie_5. Subscribe to The Barn for $1, thebarnauburn.com for $1. You get through signing day. You get through the portal. You cannot get a bigger value for $1 than what you'd get over the next month at thebarnauburn.com. I really appreciate it. Check us out tomorrow. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening and drive home safely.